Hi, Lolly.
Hey Rachel, how are you?
I'm fine.
Does
So
it
we
sound better? Can you hear me?
it sounds great. Yeah.
Lovely.
Love that for us. So I guess we should welcome people to our second episode of Crime and Wine, and maybe we should introduce ourselves because we didn't really tell anyone who we were.
Oh, was that just my mic there?
What?
Okay, no, I thought I was hearing things. It's okay, let's carry on.
Okay.
Do you want to go first and introduce yourself?
No, you go first.
Okay, all right, okay, fine. Should I tell everyone how we met too?
Sure, yeah.
Okay, so, so hi everyone, I'm Lolly. I don't really know what to tell people about myself. Oh yeah, okay. So I got my undergrad in criminology and then went into postgrad in psychology last year. And now here I am and I'm interested in crimes. And so my friend Rachel and I are talking about them.
Great.
And I'm originally from Botswana, but I tell people I'm from there too, but I'm actually from Birmingham.
It's okay. I tell people I'm from Ireland, but I'm actually from America.
Just confusing people the whole time.
Yeah. How did
Should
we meet?
Sure, okay. So, over lockdown, missed that guy. Over lockdown,
What guy? We're still in it.
Lockdown's the guy.
Okay.
Yeah, but like, actually, yeah, we are. We're still in the same one we met in.
Yeah.
Okay, so,
Over Christmas.
over lockdown, I was. Oh yeah, wait. No, well, how do I do this? Okay, over lockdown, my best friend and I were doing the lockdown thing together, and his older brother was dating Rachel, and that's how we met. So me and Rachel did lockdown together for a few months.
Right.
Miss that.
Do I miss that?
What? Miss that.
I miss you.
Miss you too. All right then, Rachel, introduce yourself then.
Yeah, so I'm from New York originally, from Westchester, which is about 45 minutes north of Manhattan.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't even know that. No.
I've definitely told you that before.
Yeah, I remember.
I did my undergrad in psychology at Michigan State, which is a huge party and drinking school. I was actually in a sorority, which I later quit because it is just like the movies. And yeah. And then I lived in New York for 5.5 years, and then I lived in LA for 2 years. Don't ask me what I was doing. I don't know. And then I moved to London in July in the middle of the pandemic to do my master's in criminology. So it just so happens that Lolly and I met and we have like reverse degrees. So
Yeah,
that's cool.
we were destined to meet.
We were.
That's what it was.
And then I realized I didn't really talk much about Gary, but Gary is my rescue dog. He's from LA.
He is the cutest.
Yes, he is. And we're not just biased. He just is.
He is gorgeous.
He is part beagle and he's part corgi. So he's a long boy, but he's got like little legs. He's really low to the ground. And today, Lolly, I put a muzzle on him for the first time. And
why?
Because he's a bitey boy. He likes to bite other dogs.
Oh no, Gary, please. We don't have time for that.
I know. He really didn't like it, but I think it should teach him a lesson.
Exactly.
And, so I just went out for a coffee with one of my girlfriends outside with masks on. And we went to the little square right by my house. And I let Gary off the leash. He has his muzzle on. And he sees a squirrel, which is his favorite thing. And so he went to chase the squirrel and he runs over to this tree. And it's just so funny trying to watch him jump at this tree because he gets like 3 inches off the ground. And you can see like there's so much hope that he has that he's going to get this squirrel. But this woman is sitting on the bench looking at me and like she has a mask on. So I can't but I can tell by her eyes, like she's pissed. And I looked at her and I was just like, I don't know what I said, but I think I saw on Instagram like recently that like somebody saying, "Just be petty. Life is too short. Why take the
Mm-hmm.
high road? Just be as petty as you can." So
So what did you say to her
I
then?
think I was like, "Can I help you?" or something, and she was like,
No, Rachel. Come on.
"Well, I don't know what I." She was just like, "There's no dogs allowed in this park."
Right? Is that
Yeah, and I was just like, you know, I was just like, "Sorry, I can't hear you." And she got up and walked over to me. She's like, "There's no dogs in this park. Read the signs." And I was just like, if she had just come over and I was laughing at her and she like got on her phone, I was just decided to be not. I was just like, Gary is so small. I get it. Like, no dogs allowed in the park.
was it a
Okay, but
gated
like,
park?
it's not even a park. It's just a square with a few benches. There's no even park. It's just a few trees and bushes and benches.
It's three bushes.
There's just a fucking like 5 bushes and a bench. I'm not, it's not like anyway, I was just like, okay. And then she was like, my kids are afraid of dogs. And my friend was just like, I should have said, like, are you still breastfeeding them? Because they're like, she was like hugging her kids as if, something
How old did
horrific
they
had
look?
happened. They were like 6 and 4 or
Right.
something. Meanwhile, Gary is nowhere near them, has not a care about them. But I got up and I went and got him. And I just said to her, like, you have a great day. And she just was saying rude things. And we were saying, like, great parenting skills or something. I don't know. She was just, she just really riled us up a bit. And she's definitely probably writing a review of us on the Nextdoor app. Like, I saw her on her phone. I was like, she's definitely like, I can't wait to see this come through, because my Nextdoor app is on under my false email address that I also
Right.
use to post reviews on supermarkets that don't make people wear masks. What? Nobody here's wearing masks,
Of course,
and it's
Rachel
just
has a fake account on Nextdoor.
I, I had to.
Oh god.
So that was my morning.
What
How
did I
was
do?
that was your morning?
Dude, I swear I just woke up. I don't really know what I've done this morning. I had a toasty. Yeah.
What's that?
What did you say?
What's a toasty?
It's a toasted sandwich.
Oh, isn't it a grilled cheese?
Yeah, with salami in it though.
Oh, right.
Weight loss season and everything. So I had that, had a cheeky shower. Now here I am. And you know how I said yesterday, or whenever we last spoke, that I wasn't going to eat sweets because of Lent?
Yeah.
Obviously, when I said that, I meant just sweets, because what I'm saying is I just had a Lindt chocolate.
Right.
So we're not counting that, right?
You gotta do you.
Exactly. And this is what I said. That's what I said when I went back in the house. I said, Rachel said that I shouldn't give up sweets for Lent, and that,
And what did they say to you?
And they just looked at me like I was crazy. And I believe in the movement of just having sweets anyway.
Is that a movement?
Yeah, so I found it on Instagram yesterday. There's a movement where you just have sweets. So that's where I'm at.
Side note, I wanted to talk really quick. Have you seen what's going on in Texas?
No, I haven't. Tell me.
Oh my God, it's horrific right now. Just in case, anybody hasn't heard of it, there are millions of Texas people who are struggling to get drinking water because there's been a deadly winter storm, and there's 7 million people, which is a quarter of the population of Texas. Our Texas officials are telling them to boil tap water before drinking it.
What?
So nobody has drinking water. There are tons of videos people are posting of their ceilings collapsing, their houses flooding. There's just no water. Meanwhile, the state senator, Ted Cruz, just got on a plane Wednesday to Cancun.
But when did all of this start? When did the...
Like days ago. It's been going on for days.
It's horrible.
And the senator just went to...
What's he doing in Cancun?
He's on vacation.
Oh, right. Now's the perfect time.
Yeah, I mean, people are up in arms and so upset with him. And he said he changed his return flight and came back. He wouldn't have done it if he thought people would be so upset.
What does he mean?
He's
Of
just
course they were going to be upset.
He's just the worst. He ran for president in 2016. Oh, also, he left his dog behind. People like drove by his house and just saw his dog in the window alone.
Does he not? Is there no, what they call? I forgot what they're called again.
What?
Kennels.
Of course there's kennel. It's 2021. There's a million different ways that you can have somebody take care of your dog. Also, he's the state senator. He's a millionaire.
Yeah.
He has unlimited resources to have somebody take care of his dog. He said later that a security guard was taking care of it.
Yeah, I was thinking I thought that was gonna be the cover up.
But yeah, people are freezing to death. Actually freezing to death.
That's horrible.
So that's what's going on in Texas. So for anybody listening, if you can send money, even like, a few dollars,
yeah,
you know what? We'll post on Instagram some different places.
We'll put up some links up there.
Yeah, we'll put some links up for ways that you can even like $1, anything.
Yeah, anything will help.
Anything will help. I'm going to do that as well today. Donate some money.
Same.
So that's my life update. And, Gary is fast asleep on the couch or on the bed.
Give him big kisses from me.
I will. So welcome to our second episode.
Welcome, everybody.
Do you want to go first?
Yeah, of course. I'll be happy to.
Okay.
Right, okay. So the title of my story today is The Imposter. And it's a story based in San Antonio, Texas. So we got on the 13th of June 1994, a young boy called Nicholas Barclay disappeared. His mum thought that he might have got into a car with a stranger, and so apparently that was quite usual, normal for him to do. So she didn't think any more of it.
What?
Then I know. So sorry, go on.
No, that's like the opposite. That's the opposite of what every parent tells their kid. She's like, "Oh, that's so Nicholas."
What a way to start off the story. I know my son just pops into cars with strangers. It is what it is.
That's very him. So it'd be like, no, we're not worried. That's the usual for him. Sorry, that's fine.
And he's 13 years old.
I'm sorry,
13.
Texas. Okay.
No, you should, honestly, good thing I didn't do that accent because
oh my god, your American accent is just atrocious.
The top tier. Okay. So 13-year-old Nicholas has gone missing. His mom thinks he's in a car with a stranger somewhere, chilling. It's fine. He lived in a good neighborhood, so no one thought that he would have been in any danger. They'd done a swipe to see if there were any kidnappers in the area. There was nothing, so they were fine. Apparently, I can't understand how they were fine, but they were fine. So on, where are we now? So they left it, Rachel. I think they left it for a bit. They didn't worry anymore about what was happening with Nicholas. But then 3 years later...
What do you mean? The family isn't worried? Nobody cares?
They were worried, but they looked for him, and I think they'd come to terms with the fact that he could have just been killed, or they were just expecting him to come back at some point. Okay. What do you do after your child's gone missing? You can only look so much until the police
If Gary went missing, I would just... live on the streets until I found him.
I get. I just pictured you in the streets by yourself, waiting for little Gary to come over.
Anyway, I wouldn't be by myself. You would be there too.
Yeah, this is true. I'll be right there next to you.
Mm-hmm.
Where are we at? Okay, so we're 4 years later. 4 years after Nicholas disappeared, the Spanish police received a call from the public. So bear in mind that for Nicholas's family is in Texas, okay? Mm-hmm. So the Spanish police receive a call from the public saying that they found a child, and he seems really confused. He's really confused.
I know
so he sounds really confused. And so then they realize that this child is identifying himself as Nicholas Barclay, right? It sucks that you know the story. Anyway, I'm going to tell you anyway.
No, it's okay. I want to hear your telling of it. But yeah, so the police in Spain are calling Texas.
Yeah, to let them know that they found this child, but he didn't have any ID papers on him or anything. Okay. Mm-hmm. And so then he is flown back to America after his sister's gone over to meet him and identify that it is him and confirm that he can come over to the US with her. So they fly back to America together and they meet his mum at the airport. Everyone's all happy to meet him. It's a good time. But there's a private investigator who'd been looking into Nicholas's case and was just interested in it. So he saw Nicholas on TV and at the same time was looking at a photo of Nicholas and then realized pretty quickly that his ears didn't match the photo that he was looking up at of Nicholas when he was 13, when he initially disappeared. And so then he clocked on pretty quickly that it wasn't Nicholas, looked into it further and confronted this guy. And it turned out that it's a guy called Frederic. And he was actually just a fraudster who had been infiltrating kids' homes for years and years and years, trying to seek asylum when he had a family at home. And so, I mean, that's the case. But now that you know what I'm talking about, is there anything you'd like to add?
I mean, I think, yeah, I mean, is that all you have to say on it?
Yeah.
Okay. That was very fast.
I know. I think I just, like, as soon as you said you knew the story.
Oh, did you start panicking?
Yeah.
No, tell it, because I know it, but nobody else, like maybe other people who are listening don't know it.
I mean, like, yeah, I mean, what else is there to add, really?
There's a
ton.
ton.
Yeah, no, oh my God, afterwards, I don't know if you know this part or whether you heard this part, that after he got sentenced for 6 years for doing this, right?
Yeah, I mean, he is a terrible person. Like, he defrauded this family. He was like a changeling. He pretended that he was the son, and the family was so desperate that, to hope that their son was alive, that they just went along with it. They're like, maybe this is him, but he looks nothing like
he looks nothing like him.
Nothing. He has different color eyes.
Mm-hmm. But did you hear what his story, apparently his cover-up story? Hello, can you still hear me? Sorry, my mum called me. I'm so sorry about that. No, his cover-up story is that he'd been injected in his eyes to change the color of his eyes to brown from blue, and that the reason he had a French accent is because when he had been kidnapped, he was forced to speak French for 3 years. And I mean, if you heard this guy speak, it's such a fluent accent. I can't believe that he would have been changed that easily from a strong American accent. So it's all very unbelievable. But following his arrest after 6 years or so, I think he's just come out. He was in another interview the other day, and he said that the family was so accepting of him because they think that his older brother had killed him, and so they were just covering it up with Frederic.
Oh, they think that Nicholas's brother actually killed him.
Yeah, and so the reason they were so accepting of him is because they were just like, cool, this is a good way to cover it up. But obviously, we don't know if that's true because Frederic is the one who's saying it.
Wait, why do they think the older brother?
Because his older brother died. His older brother killed himself when the private investigator started looking into Frederic and started realizing that it wasn't Nicholas.
So they lost
lost two sons. And there's a chance that one of them killed the other one. I mean, I don't know. I was looking into it earlier and there's not really any solid evidence. Nothing's ever been done about it, but apparently the private investigator is still looking into it till this date. So that's how that ended. But obviously, if anyone has anything I've missed out, please do write in and let us know.
Okay. Well, my story is like much
That's
longer. Okay. So I am doing the Sodder children disappearance. Okay. So this is the scene. It is Christmas Eve, 1945, at the Sodder house in Fayetteville, West Virginia. At this time, the house consists of George Sodder, his wife Jenny, and 9 of their 10 children. The Sodders are celebrating Christmas Eve with Marion, who is the oldest daughter, she had been working at a dime store in downtown Fayetteville, and she surprised 3 of her younger sisters, Martha, who's 12, Jenny, who's 8, and Betty, who is 5, with new toys she had brought for them as
Okay.
gifts. The younger children are so excited. They ask their mom if they can stay up, which would stay up past what their normal bedtime is. And, it's Christmas Eve, so she's like, yeah. So at 10 p.m., Jenny, the mother, tells them they can stay up a little bit later as long as 2 of the older boys who are still awake, 14-year-old Maurice and 9-year-old Louis, remember to put the cows in and feed the chickens before going to bed
As you do.
themselves. As you do. And so George, who is the father, and the 2 older boys, John, who's 23, and George Jr., who's 16. Sorry, there's a lot of names.
Okay,
There's 10 kids.
I'm keeping up, I think.
Okay. They had spent the day working with their father, and they were already asleep. So after reminding the kids of their remaining chores, Jenny, the mother, takes Sylvia, who's only 2 years old, upstairs with her and goes to bed.
Say that again.
The mother takes the 2-year-old daughter, Sylvia, upstairs with her, and they go to bed. Now it's 12:30 a.m., and the telephone rings. And Jenny wakes up, and she goes downstairs to answer it. And the caller is a woman whose voice she doesn't recognize, asking for a name she's not familiar with the sound of laughter and clinking glasses in the background.
That's terrible. That's really freaked me out. Okay.
Yeah. And Jenny tells the caller that she thinks that this woman has the wrong number, later recalling that the woman had a weird laugh. So then Jenny hangs up and she goes to bed. And as she goes up to bed, she notices that the lights are still on and the curtains were not drawn, which are 2 things that the children normally do when they stay up later than their parents. They usually turn off the lights and close the curtains. So she checks on the kids. Marion has fallen asleep on the living room couch. So Jenny, the mother, just assumes that the other kids who stayed up later had gone back up to the attic where they sleep. So she closes the curtains, turns off the lights, and she goes back to bed. Now at 1 a.m., Jenny is awakened again by a sound of an object hitting the house's roof with a loud bang and then a rolling noise.
Oh my god. I'm sat in the car and it's really windy and I'm just okay.
Yeah, buckle in. So she hears nothing further and then she goes back to sleep. Then after another half hour, she wakes up again smelling smoke. She must be like, fuck, like every half hour.
Also,
Rachel, she's got 10 kids. This woman can't just sleep.
If you heard someone banging on your roof, you're just going to roll over and go back to sleep.
She probably thought that it was like a squirrel or something.
Okay, all right. So what happens next?
So she wakes up another half hour later. So it's 1:30 in the morning and she smells smoke. And when she gets up, she finds that the room George, the husband, used for his office is on fire around the telephone line and the fuse box. So Jenny wakes up George and he wakes up his older sons. Both parents and 4 of their children, which is Marion, Sylvia, John, and George, escape the house, frantically yelling to the children upstairs who are in the attic, but they get no response for them. And they couldn't get upstairs because the stairway itself was already on fire. And so John, who is one of the kids who escaped, said in his first police interview that after the fire, he went up to the attic to alert his siblings sleeping there, though he later changed his story to say that he only called up there and didn't actually
And he was the
see
oldest
them.
child.
He is,
Okay.
I don't know where he is in line. Oh, okay. He's 23. I think the actual oldest one, which I'll get to later, is off at war because it's during World War II. So there's not a lot good going on in the world at this time in 1945. So efforts to find aid and rescue the children was really unexpectedly complicated. Their phone didn't work, so Marion ran to a neighbor's to call the fire department. A driver on the nearby road had also seen the flames and called from a nearby tavern, and they also were unsuccessful, either because they couldn't reach the operator or because the phone there turned out to be broken. So either the neighbor or the passing motorist, somebody was eventually successful in reaching the fire department from another phone in the center of town. So finally, they get help. George, who's barefoot, climbs the wall and broke open an attic window, cutting his
Oh,
arm in the process. He and his sons intended to use a ladder to the attic to rescue the other children, but it was not in its usual spot, resting against the house, and he couldn't find it anywhere
this is just
nearby.
getting freakier
So,
and freakier.
so it feels like somebody moved the
Okay.
ladder. George then tries to pull both of the trucks he uses in his business up to the house and use them to climb to the attic window, but neither of his trucks would start despite having worked perfectly
So
the day
everything's
before.
broken at the moment, and everything's moved.
The phones aren't working, the ladder is missing, and his trucks that were working the day before
Okay,
aren't
so
working.
someone else must have been involved, surely.
So they're really frustrated, and the 6 Sodders, so the parents and their 4 kids who escaped, have no choice but to watch the house burn down and collapse over the next
That's
45 minutes.
horrible.
So they assume that the other 5 kids had perished in the blaze, and the fire department, low on manpower due to the war and relying on individual firefighters to call each other, didn't respond until later that morning. Chief F.J. Morris said the next day that the already slow response was further hampered by his inability to drive the fire truck, requiring that he wait until someone who could drive was available. Like, the
He
chief
couldn't
of the
drive
fire
it.
department doesn't know how to drive the fire truck. That's so apt. That is so, like, the CEO of a company being like, "Do you know
Yeah,
how to save this as a PDF?" And you're like,
we're
"Fuck."
all fucked.
Like, it's always like the head man who doesn't know how to do the job, and everyone else. But anyway, so the firefighters, one of whom is a brother of Jenny's, so he's the uncle
Mm-hmm.
to all of these kids, could do nothing but look through the ashes that were left in the Sodders' basement. And by 10 a.m., Chief Morris told the Sodders that they had not found any
Huh?
bones, which, yeah, which would be expected if the children had been in the house and been burned. Because I was looking into this, and at when you cremate a
Yeah.
body, I think it has to be around 2,000 degrees. And even then, there's sometimes bones left over. And a
Was that Celsius
fire
or
does,
Fahrenheit? Okay,
probably
right.
Fahrenheit. And a body, a fire doesn't get as hot and isn't as contained. So there's
Yeah,
definitely
I was
always going
thinking
to be
that.
bones. And so they find no bones. But according to another account, they did find a few bone fragments and internal organs, but chose not to
What?
tell the family. That's
Okay,
not
okay.
proven. It's also been noted by modern fire professionals that their search was cursory at best, so they
Mm.
didn't even really look. So who knows? Nevertheless, the Chief Morris believed that the 5 children unaccounted for had died in the fire, suggesting it had been hot enough to burn their bodies completely. But as we know, Chief Morris doesn't even know
So,
how to drive the truck,
sorry.
so why are we going to believe that he knows what's going on? Okay, so now let me give you a bit of backstory
Okay.
of the family. Okay. So George the father was born in Sardinia, Italy in 1895 and immigrated to the United States at 13 years old with his brother, who turned around immediately at Ellis Island and went
Okay.
back to Italy. He saw New York. He got to Ellis Island. He was like,
I'm out.
bye, I am not doing that. He was like back to Sardinia, which, yeah, I get it. He Then George Sodder went on to work on the railroads in Pennsylvania. And then after a few years, he took on permanent work as a driver in
Okay.
West Virginia, which is where he later settles down. And so after a few more years in West Virginia, he starts his own trucking company and then marries the storekeeper, Jenny Cipriani, who also immigrated from Italy in her childhood. So they become husband and wife. And they settle outside Fayetteville, West Virginia, which also had a large population of Italian immigrants. So in 1923, they have the first of their 10 children. 10. And like, I don't know what kind of drugs they
Oh my
have back
goodness.
then
So
for
10
women.
children.
10 kids. They must have been pure Catholic. My mom's one of
Really?
9
I mean, to be
kids.
fair, my grandparents have pretty big sibling ships.
Oh, okay. They have a lot
Sibling
of
ships,
siblings.
yeah.
Okay. Um so so in 1923 they have the first of their 10 kids. And George's business prospers and they become one of the most respected middle class families in town. However, George has really strong opinions about a lot of many subjects, and he wasn't shy about expressing them, especially when it came to Benito
Okay.
Mussolini. Um, the last of the 10 children was born in 1943. So, yeah, at the time of the fire, that's why the little baby, she's only 2 years old. Um, And yeah, by then their second oldest, Joe, had left home to serve during
Okay.
World War II. Which must be weird being like first generation Italian and then going to fight for the United States during the war, knowing your family's from Italy and
Yeah,
you're
no,
fighting against
it's pretty
Italy.
hectic.
Yeah. And the following year, Mussolini is
Yay.
executed. Yay. So George's criticism of the late dictator has left some people with hard feelings because he was, living with in a very large population of
Okay, yeah.
Italian immigrants. Um, so in October of 1945, a visiting life insurance salesman, after being rebuffed, warned George that his house would go up in smoke and your children are going to be
What?
destroyed, attributing this all to the dirty remarks you've been making about
No
Mussolini. So
way.
this insurance salesman is telling him he's going to kill his family and burn them because he's said mean things about Mussolini. It's
The
like,
insurance guy.
just the insurance, yeah, just get over it,
Everybody
man. Just
calm down.
Yeah, just calm down. Another visitor to the house who was apparently seeking work took the occasion to go around to the back and warned George that a pair of fuse boxes would cause a fire
So he's got a
someday.
few people telling him that there's going to be a fire at his house.
Oh, yeah, well, he has one insurance salesman threatening, and then one guy who was looking for work saying that there's a fuse box that would cause a fire. I don't think that was seen as a threat. I think he was just like, hey, man, your fuse
And
box
this
doesn't
is
look
the
so
house. I'm
great.
assuming they've moved here way before any of these remarks have started taking place. So it isn't a situation where they could have moved into a house that had already been rigged, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, no, this is happening after
Okay,
they've lived
okay,
there for a
cool.
while. Yeah, this is happening when George is saying
Okay,
things about Mussolini in
cool.
1945 area time. So, so the aftermath of so those are the threats he's received. Okay, so then in the aftermath of the fire, Chief Idiot Morris tells George to leave the site undisturbed so that the state fire marshal's office could conduct a more thorough
Okay.
investigation, which is probably the first
Good,
good
good,
thing
good, good,
Morris did.
Morris.
Um, However, after 4 days, George and his wife can't bear the sight of their demolished house, and so they bulldoze 5 feet or a meter and a half of dirt over the site with the intention of covering it to make it a memorial garden for
Okay.
their lost children. But like they could be
I
just
know, that's
covering
what I
up
was
evidence of
thinking.
like,
3 days, only 3 days
yeah,
after. 4.
4 days. Yeah. So the local coroner convened an inquest the next day, which held that the fire was an accident caused by faulty wiring. And among the jurors was the man who had threatened George that his house would be burned
What?
down and his children destroyed in retribution for an anti-Mussolini mark. I don't know how that guy, the
How
insurance
did he
guy,
become
got to
part?
be a juror. I don't know. I don't know. Death certificates for the 5 children were issued December 30th, so only, 6 days later. Um, the local newspaper contradicted itself, stating that all the bodies had been found, but then later in the same story reported that only one part of one body was recovered. And then George and Jenny are just too grief-stricken to attend the funeral
Oh,
on
what? They
January
didn't
2nd,
go?
1946. No, but their other surviving
Okay.
children did. Okay. So then, not long afterwards, as they begin to rebuild their lives, the Sodders started to question all the official findings about the fire. They're wondering why, if it's been caused by an electrical problem, that the family's Christmas lights had remained on throughout the fire's early stages when the power
Yeah.
should have gone out. Then they find that the ladder had been missing from the side of the house on the night of the fire, and it had been found in an embankment 75 feet or 23 meters away. Excuse me. A telephone repairman told the Sodders that the house's phone line had not been burned through in the fire, as they initially thought, but cut by someone who had been willing and able to climb 14 feet up the pole and reach 2 feet
Oh
away
my
from it to do
goodness.
so. So, a man whose neighbors had seen stealing a block and tackle, which
Yeah.
I don't know what that is, from the property around the time of the fire was identified and arrested. And he admitted to the theft and claimed that he had been the one who cut the phone line, thinking it was a power line, but he denied ever having anything to do with the fire. So he just was
Okay.
over there thinking that he was stealing something and cutting uh,
Okay, so
a
he's
power
claiming it's a
line.
mistake. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, he was like, "Yeah, I'm a thief,
Okay.
but I'm not. I didn't start the fire. We didn't start the fire." Yeah. However, no record identifying the suspect exists, and why he would have wanted to cut any utility lines to the Sodder house while stealing a block and tackle has never been explained. It
Okay.
doesn't make any sense. Um, so Jenny, the mother, says in 1968 that if he had cut their power line, then she and her husband, along with their other 4 children, would never have been able to make it out of the
Okay.
house. So Jenny also had trouble accepting Chief Morris's belief that all traces of the children's body had been burned completely in the fire. Many of the household appliances had still been found, still recognizable in the ash, along with fragments of the tin roof. Here. So she contrasted the results of the fire with a newspaper account of a similar house fire that she had read around the same time that killed a family of 7, and skeletal remains of all the victims were reported to have been found in that case. So Jenny's like, okay, I'm looking at this house fire. 7 people are dead. They found all of the remains, and why aren't you finding any of the remains in mine? But you're still like finding
Yeah,
household
and you're rushing the case
appliances,
so much
which,
too.
yeah. Jenny then burned small piles of animal bones to see if they would be able to to
Smart.
test it out to see if they would be able to be burned, and none ever were. They
That's
still
pretty
remained.
smart.
And this is where I got the okay, so an employee of the local crematorium she contacted. So Jenny's like on it. She's like, I need to figure out what happened. So she's calling the crematorium and she contacts them, um they told her that human bones remain even after bodies are burned at 2000 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 1090 degrees
That's
Celsius, for 2 hours, which is far longer and far hotter than the house fire could have been. So it doesn't
yeah.
make any sense why
It's
there are
not adding up
no
at all.
bones. It's not adding up. Something's, it's like that meme of the woman with like the math all in front of her face and she's like looking around. You're like, something's not making sense. So the Sodders, um, so then Jenny's like, what's going on with our trucks? Our trucks weren't starting that night either. So we have no bones. We have a ladder that is found 75 feet away. We have a power line cut. We have our trucks aren't working, which George believed that they'd been tampered with, perhaps by the same man who stole the
Yeah.
block and tackle. Can somebody tell us what a
Yeah.
block and tackle is? I feel like it has something to do
I
with
was gonna
fishing,
Google it,
but
but if I come
I
off
could
this, I'm
be,
worried it's gonna stop recording. So
yeah, don't, please don't. Um, However, one of his son-in-laws told the Charleston Gazette in 2013, so way later, that he had come to believe that the Sodders and his son might have, in their haste to start the trucks, just flooded the engines,
yeah.
which could be true. Like if you're just like trying to start it really fast. Um, some accounts have suggested the wrong phone number call to the Sodder house might have also somehow been connected to the fire and disappearance of the children. However, investigators later located the woman who had made the call and confirmed it had been a wrong number.
Oh,
So the woman who had like the clinking, who had called at 12:30 in the morning and like been
oh
laughing
man,
weird,
when you
that was
talk
just a
about
wrong
that, honestly, I
number.
get goosebumps. It's so scary. But yeah, it's just
That's just my voice.
ow. So that was the wrong call.
So that was the wrong call. So then there are subsequent developments, okay? So as spring is approaching, I believe it's still 1946. The Sodders, they plant flowers in the soil over the bulldozed house, and Jenny cares for it for the rest of her
Wow.
life. And further developments in early 1946 reinforced the family's belief that the children they were memorializing might in fact be
But
alive
who would have
somewhere.
taken them? And I don't understand. Are you gonna? Is there? Okay. All right. Sorry.
I'm
I
yeah.
got excited.
Yeah. No, it's an exciting case. Okay. So evidence emerged which supported their belief that the fire had not started in the electrical fault and was instead set deliberately. The driver of a bus that passed through Fayetteville late Christmas Eve said he had seen some people throwing balls of fire
And do
at
you
the
think that's
house.
what the?
But,
Mm-hmm,
but it's like Lord of the Rings, like okay. A few months like and he's like, well, the bus driver's like, I'm gonna keep going.
Off I
Like,
go. I'm not gonna call the
I'm not
police or
stopping.
anything.
He's like, I'm not stopping for this. A few months later, when the snow had melted, Sylvia found a small, hard, dark green rubber ball-like object in the brush nearby. Um, George, recalling his wife's account of the loud thump on the roof before
Mm-hmm.
the
Yeah.
fire, remember when there was like she
Yeah.
woke up and heard something, said it looks like a pineapple bomb or like a hand grenade, which is used in combat. The family later claimed that, contrary to the fire marshal's conclusion, the fire had started on the roof, although there's
Okay.
no way to prove that. Um, Other witnesses claim to have seen the children
What?
alive now. One woman who was watching the fire from the road said that she saw some of them peering out of a passing car while the house
Huh?
was burning. Another woman at a rest stop between Fayetteville and Charleston said she had served them breakfast the next morning and noted the presence of a car with Florida license plate in the rest stop's parking lot as well. I don't know if these people are seeing these 5 children alive having breakfast the next morning. Why aren't they
But
calling the
also, who would
police?
have been driving? Would there been a child old enough to drive?
No, they're saying that they've been
Right, right,
kidnapped.
right. So I'm surely when you see kids panicking, unless they were told if you panic, we're killing you. So
Yeah, who knows? Um, so then the Sodders hire a private investigator, and the name of this private investigator is C.C. Tinsley.
I like that
Um,
name.
yeah. Tinsley learns that the insurance salesman who had threatened them with a fire a year before over George's anti-Mussolini sentiments had been on the coroner's jury that ruled the fire an accident and told and he told this to the Sodders. Okay. So um I guess the Sodders didn't know that he was on the
Okay, yeah,
jury.
yeah.
Yeah. He also learned of rumors around Fayetteville that despite his report to the Sodders that no remains had been found in the ashes, Chief Morris had found a heart, which he later packed into a metal box and
Yeah.
secretly buried. But this is just a rumor that the investigator is finding. But that's also weird. Like, why would the chief
But we
fire
already thought he
marshal
was a bit strange. This is
find
Morris, right? Yeah.
yeah, this is Morris, and it said that he found a heart and then packed it in a metal box and
Like,
buried it.
what's up with that? Is that the
Um,
one body that he reported?
no, it's not reported. This is
Okay,
just
it's a
a
very
rumor.
strange rumor there.
Then so Morris had apparently confessed this to a local minister who confirmed it to George. George and Tinsley go to Morris and confront him with this news, and Morris agrees to show the two where he buried the metal box, and they dig it up. And they took what they found inside the box to a local funeral director who, after examining it, told them in reality it was fresh beef liver that had never been
Why
exposed to
did he
fire.
do that?
Morris is just
He's not.
Morris
He's
isn't well.
not.
He's not. I hope somebody was like, "Look, Morris, you
We're
can't
gonna
even drive the
have to
fire
let
truck,
you go.
and now we're gonna have to let you go." And like, sir, we found that you buried fresh beef liver in a box.
That's some
We're gonna have to let
scary
you
behavior.
go. Yeah. Later, there's more rumors circulated that Morris had afterwards admitted the box with the liver had indeed not come from the fire originally. He had supposedly placed it there in the hope that the Sodders would find it and be satisfied that the missing children
Oh
had
my
died.
goodness. That is so twisted.
It is so sick. Okay. So then there's an excavation. Okay. So George didn't. So over the years, there's been sightings of these kids. Okay. George didn't wait for the reports of the sightings to come in. Sometimes he said he made these sightings. He saw them himself. I'm not sure. After seeing a girl in a magazine picture of a young ballet dancer in New York City who looks like one could be his missing daughter, Betty, one of the surviving daughters, and himself drove all the way to the girl's school where his repeated demands to see the girl were refused.
That's so sad.
I know. He also tried to interest the FBI in investigating what he considered a kidnapping, but Director J. Edgar Hoover personally responded to his letters. Although I would like to be of service, the matter related appears to be of a local character and does not come within the investigative jurisdiction
That's
of this
horrible.
bureau.
Why would he just
Fuck
look
off.
into it?
You can do whatever. Because they don't care about the people. If the local authorities requested the Bureau's assistance, he added he would, of course, direct agents to assist, but the Fayetteville Police and Fire Departments declined to do so. So in August of 1949, so now it's been
4 years?
4 years.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 4 years since the fire. George is able to persuade Oscar Hunter, who is a Washington, D.C. pathologist, to supervise a new search through the dirt at the house site. And after a very thorough search, artifacts including a dictionary that had belonged to the children and some coins were found, and several small bone fragments were unearthed, determined to have been a human vertebrae. The bone fragments were sent to Marshall T. Newman, a specialist at the Smithsonian Institution, and they were confirmed to be lumbar vertebrae, all from the same person. And since part of the vertebrae were fused, the age of the individual at death should have been 16 or 17 years old. The top limit of age should be around 22. Something about it fusing at 23. I don't know. Given the age range, it was not very likely that these bones were from any of the 5 missing children, since the oldest, Maurice, had been 14 at the time. So although the report allowed the vertebrae of a boy his age, so it must have been somebody who died before they
and the body was buried underneath.
It was somewhere around the house. They found.
I guess it is normal to bury people in your back garden in some places.
Well, either that or it's somebody else murdered.
So. I hope not.
But also the vertebrae that they did find showed no sign of exposure to flames, so it's definitely it's just not one of the 5 kids. And he further agreed that it was very strange that those bones were the only ones found, since a wood fire of such short duration should have left full skeletons of all the children behind, because it only burned for 45 minutes.
Said about the heat and time, right?
Yeah. So later Tinsley confirms that the bone fragment, Tinsley, who's the investigator, whatever, confirms that the bone fragments had come from a cemetery in a nearby Mount Hope, but could not explain why they had been taken from there or how they came to be at the fire site.
Is that what he's doing?
Could be. Morris is
Can't
at it
believe that
again.
guy.
Yeah. So then the investigation and its findings at this time attracts national attention, which is great. And the West Virginia legislature held 2 hearings on the case in 1950. Afterwards, the governor and the state police told the Sodders the case was hopeless and closed it at the state level. But the FBI decided it had jurisdiction as a possible interstate kidnapping, but then dropped the case after 2 years following fruitless
Just
leads,
two
so they couldn't
years
find
though.
anything.
That's nothing.
Just 2 years, yeah. But okay, the Sodders do not give up hope of their 5 kids. They put up flyers and pictures of the children, offering a $5,000 reward, which they soon doubled to $10,000 for any information that would find even just one of them. And then in 1952, they put up a billboard at the site of the house, another one on U.S. Route 60, and then another one on U.S. Route 19. The family's efforts soon brought another reported sighting of the children after the fire. This woman, Ida Crutchfield, who ran a Charleston hotel. Charleston's in South Carolina. Yeah. I know
It's
you're
terrible.
not great with geography, but we're gonna get you there. South Carolina is on the east coast of the United States. So there's Florida, then above that is Georgia. Above that is South Carolina, then North Carolina.
Is your accent changing as you're saying the Carolinas? That's so funny.
It might be.
Should I tell you how you said it?
No, please.
All right, so we're at North Carolina.
All right. Anyway, so this woman who ran a Charleston hotel claimed to have seen the children approximately a week after. She says she doesn't remember the exact date. The children had come in around midnight with 2 men and 2 women, all of whom appeared to her to be of Italian extraction. When she attempted to speak to the children, one of the men looked at her in a hostile manner, turned around, and began talking rapidly in Italian. Mind you, immediately the whole part, all of them stopped talking to her, and she recalled that they left the hotel early the next morning. Investigators today do not, however, consider her story credible, as she had only first seen photos of the children 2 years after the fire, 5 years before she came forward with this information.
2 years after the fire, 5 years.
Yeah, that's before she told the police this information. So Ida is a liar.
Wasting time.
George, the father, George, started following up leads in person. It must have been devastating because, I know family is everything everywhere, but to Italians, it's like, my mom's gonna be upset at me saying that. Sorry, Mom. Also, my mom was upset that I said I barely got into college because it's not true. She wrote me on the side and was like, Rachel, why did you say that? That's not true. And she's right. It's not true, but whatever. I didn't apply to Cambridge, but that's because, Mom, you didn't even let me apply to chemistry. She was like, you're gonna fail. You're not good at math, which is true.
I'm sure she believes in you deep down in her heart.
She does. But yeah, here, Mom, I did get into college. Thank you for my education. Then, okay, so as George is following up on these leads in person, he's traveling to all these different areas where tips are coming in. A woman from St. Louis, Missouri, claimed that Martha, one of the daughters, was being held in a convent there. A bar patron in Texas claimed to have overheard 2 other children making incriminating statements about a fire that happened on Christmas Eve in West Virginia. But none of these proved to be significant. And when George hears later that a relative of Jenny, the wife in Florida, had children that looked similar to his, the relative had to prove the children were his own before George was satisfied.
George was really caught up.
Yeah. Then we're now in 1967. George goes down to Houston to investigate another tip where a woman there had written to the family saying that Lewis had revealed his true identity to her one night after having too much to drink. She believed that him and Maurice were living in Texas somewhere. However, George and his son-in-law were unable to speak with her, and police there were able to help them find the two men she'd indicated, but they denied being the missing sons. Years later, the doubts about the denial lingered in George's mind for the rest of his
Poor
life.
George.
I know. Another letter that they received that year brought the Sodders what they believed was the most credible evidence that at least Lewis was still alive. So one day, Jenny found in the mail a letter addressed to her, postmarked from Central City, Kentucky, with no return address. And inside was a picture of a young man of around 30 years old with features strongly resembling Lewis's, who would have been in his 30s if he had survived. On the back was written, Lewis Sodder, I love brother Frankie, Lil Boys, A90132 or 35.
What does that mean? Does it say?
So the family hired another private detective to go to Central City and look into this, but he never reported back to the Sodders, and they were unable to
the private
locate him
investigator?
afterwards. The private detective goes missing.
This is insane.
So then the picture of this maybe adult Lewis gives them so much hope. They add it to the billboards that they have up. And they leave Central City out of it and any other published information out of fear that Lewis might come to harm. And they put an enlargement of this photo over their fireplace. George admits to the Charleston Gazette Mail late the next year that the lack of information had been like hitting a rock wall. We can't go any further. He nevertheless vowed to continue and said, time is running out for us. And he admitted in another interview around that time, the time is running out for us is what he admitted in another interview around that time. But we only want to know if they did die in the fire, we want to be convinced. Otherwise, we want to know what happened to them. And then George Sodder died in 1969, never knowing. And then Jenny and her surviving children, except John, who never talked about the night of the fire except to say that the family should accept it and get on with their lives, continued to seek answers to their questions about the missing children's fate. And then after George's death, Jenny stayed in the family home, putting up fencing around it and adding additional rooms. And for the rest of her life, she wore black in mourning and tended to the garden at the site of the former house. For the rest of her life. And then after her death in 1989, the family finally took the billboard down.
And still till this day, you want to tell me no one has any idea where these kids are?
Well, so the surviving Sodder children, joined by their own children now, continued to publicize the case and investigate leads. They, along with other Fayetteville, West Virginia residents, have theorized that the Sicilian mafia was trying to extort money from George, and the children may have been taken by someone who knew about the planned arson and said that they would be safe if they left the house, and that they were possibly taken back to Italy. And if the children had survived all those years and were aware that their parents and siblings had survived too, the family believes they may have avoided contact in order to keep them from harm.
Okay.
As of 2015, which is really recent, Sylvia Sodder Paxton, who's the youngest in the family, she was 2 at the time of the fire. She is the only surviving Sodder sibling who was in the house on the night of the fire, which she says is her earliest memory. I was the last one of the kids to leave home, she recalled in 2013. She and her father often stayed up late talking about what might have happened. She said, I experienced their grief for a long time. She still believes that her siblings survived that night and quietly assists with efforts to find them and publicize the case. And then her daughter said in 2006, she promised my grandparents she wouldn't let the story die, that she would do everything she could. In the 21st century, these efforts have come to include online forums like websleuths.com, in addition to media coverage, and the the increase in the media coverage has led some who've examined the case to believe that the children did in fact die in 1945. And George Bragg, who is a local author who wrote about the case in 2012 in his book called West Virginia's Unsolved Murders, believes that John was telling the truth in his original account when he said he tried to physically awaken his siblings before fleeing the house. He allows that the conclusion may still not be correct. He says, logic tells you they probably did burn up in the fire, but you can't always go by logic. And then this woman named Stacey Horn, who did a segment on the case for the National Public Radio around its 60th anniversary in 2005, also believes the children's death in the fire is the most plausible solution. And in a post on her blog with material she had cut from the story for Time, she noted that the fire had continued to smolder all night after the fire collapsed, and that 2 hours was not enough time to search the ash thoroughly. And even if it had been, the firefighters may not have known what to look for. However, she said there's enough genuine weirdness about this whole thing that if someday it is learned that the children did not die in the fire, I won't be shocked. And that is the story of the Sodder children. But there are some new leads, which talks about who they think is responsible for setting the fire, that it's not an accident. And of course, the first logical suspect is the insurance salesman, whose name is Rosser Long, who threatened him 2 months before the fire, saying that his children would die in the house fire as a consequence for speaking out about Mussolini. But Long has said that was a mistake, what he said.
It's a pretty heavy statement.
Yeah, it's a really strange thing to say to someone that that your children will die. You know, I wouldn't even say that to the woman who was yelling at Gary this morning.
That's a very, very interesting story.
Yeah, and then the really strange thing is that he was never questioned or approached by the police, and the police never wanted the Sodders to know that he was on the jury.
Yeah, I don't understand how he ended up there. That's not making much sense to me.
I don't know. The next curious figure is, of course, Mr. Morris, who is the fire chief. So it says, this is from Reddit. In 1945, he had been the fire chief for 8 years, and he couldn't drive a fire truck.
That was our first question.
Yeah, so he is another suspect. And the third suspect is Fiorenzo Gambel Gianotullo, who was very well respected in Fayetteville. He's obviously an Italian immigrant. And it said that he has possible motives and connections to others involved in the crime. Could he be the mastermind behind the fire? Was he enraged at George's anti-Mussolini sentiments? Was it because George rebuffed Long, the insurance salesman? Was it because Jenny's father? Was it because of Jenny's father's unsettled estate? All these different reasons. And then another, not a suspect, but a key figure in the story is C.C. Tinsley, the investigator, who is very mysterious. And there's almost no trace of him.
Weird.
Yeah. And then, no, I think that was a different one that disappeared.
No, wait, it was another one afterwards. Yeah.
That was a different one that they hired later who just never got back to them.
Which is very, very... None of it really makes any sense.
Yeah, I don't... It doesn't. So, yeah, that's the mystery of the Sodder family, the 5 missing children.
Thanks for talking to us about that, Rachel.
It's very sad. And both parents died without ever knowing what happened to their 5 kids. And the mother just wore black the rest of her life.
It's really sad.
Is it Friday?
Is it?
I think so.
I
I
know
don't
where we
know.
are. Oh yeah, it's Friday.
What is it?
It's Friday.
Okay.
I've got work
Doesn't
tomorrow, so
matter.
yeah, it's Friday.
No.
It's Friday. What are you doing for the rest of the day?
I'll tell you not on here.
Love that for you. So I'll tell you what I'm doing for the rest of the day because it's really entertaining. So after this, I'm gonna go and sleep. Then I'm gonna wake up at. Yeah, no,
you're not gonna sleep. You can never. You can never take a nap.
This is true.
You
Okay,
just
thanks,
go
Rachel.
and you lay upstairs in bed, and then you're like, yeah, I'm up.
Thanks.
What you want?
So I'm gonna sleep, wake up, do a little bit of accent practicing for the next episode. Be prepared, people. Gonna cook some dinner. Excited for that.
Oh, how was the
lasagna
lasagna the
obviously
other
I'm a bit biased because I made it, but I think it was better than Ask Italian.
Was the house happy with it?
I was pretty happy with that one. I made 2 actually.
Did Jamie eat the other one? Yeah, I didn't think so.
No, he didn't, but he said it smelled nice, so it's okay. Shout out to Jamie.
That's a good compliment. Okay.
What else am I doing? Yeah, no, I think that's it, Rachel. That's what I'm doing today. I'm sleeping and then I'm gonna cook.
Are you watching anything?
Oh, okay.
Good
I'm watching this thing
anything?
called The Missing on BBC. I think I've seen it before. Can't remember what happens, so I'm gonna watch it again.
Oh, I think I've seen that. It's about a little boy.
Yes. I thought you were gonna go on.
Yeah. No, I wasn't gonna go on. I'm not gonna ruin it. I just watched
Is it
White
good?
House Farm, which it's really good, and it's a true story, so I won't tell anyone anything. But I basically just binge watched it all day yesterday because I got my period yesterday, and I was just laid up with my hot water bottle. For anyone in America, a hot water bottle is like a heating pad.
You don't have hot water bottles. Man.
I didn't know what it was until you had said to me when I was like dying of cramps back in December, and you were like, "Should I get you a hot water bottle?" And I was like, "What the fuck is that going to do for me?"
Little did you know.
I was
Rachel,
like, "What is she talking
I was
about?"
to change your life.
You really did. I use it all the time now.
It's the best thing ever.
It's great.
The best thing ever.
It's great. It is, because the heating pad, like, you have to plug it in. You have to wait. You have to, you can't take it with you. You have to keep plugging it in.
Yeah,
exactly. It's been a week by that time.
Waiting for this thing to heat up. Yeah, no, they're a good time.
But yeah, so I binge watched that. The acting is really, really good. It is super dark. The main girl in it, she was Theon's sister in Game of Thrones.
But you know what? Let's just not get into that one because I really feel I'm gonna offend some people. It's not my vibe. It's not about crime, and so I can't watch it.
It's about murder, betrayal, sex,
it's
power.
Yeah, no, do you know what? I'm gonna watch it.
I convinced you.
I'm gonna watch it. I feel like I should watch it. Too many people talk about it, and I think I just need to put my bums down and watch it.
Yeah. I think it's time. I mean, I envy you because you get to start it from the beginning.
I'm pretty jealous of myself at the moment, to be fair.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I guess I'll just
Thanks,
let you go
Rachel.
Sleep,
thanks everybody for listening.
You're welcome. And when I get off, I'll tell you what I'm doing later. I feel like you already know. But
also, I really hope that the recording sounded a bit better this time, guys. I really
for sure
really
it
hope.
has to.
But yeah, again, thanks for listening, guys. Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening and taking your time to listen to Lolly and I. And if you have any other questions about who we are or what we are doing, let us know. I'm not really doing anything. Gary,
come on, Gary.
No. He's burrowing. You know, when dogs like start clawing at the ground, like to make a hole.
Inside.
He's trying to dig a hole in my bed. But he's inside. He's just staring at me. He's trying. It's what I Googled it. It's what they do when they're trying to get warm. They burrow.
Yeah.
I
So
do
I
too.
get it, Gary. I get what you're going
Yeah.
through, baby.
Yeah.
Right, Rachel.
I'm gonna go
All
give
right
him some
then.
attention.
Bye. Bye.